how to make a business case. So this is basically, how do you defend an idea that you have or a project you want to do?
Lei è Anna Reich, è un ingegnere meccanico, si è laureata a Berlino e ora vive e lavora in Svezia. Ha un canale YouTube in cui condivide tantissime informazioni interessanti sulla vita da ingegnere. In questo video abbiamo fatto una bella chiacchierata e lei ci racconta la sua esperienza universitaria e i suoi progetti professionali. Thanks for your availability, Anna, and I went through your channel. I already forwarded some of your videos to my community because there are so many input. So I would really like to start with asking you to introduce yourself, explain who you are, what is your journey, and a quick introduction because I have a list of questions for you.
Yes, okay. And thanks so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here. So yeah, my name is Anna Reich. I'm originally from Germany, and I now work in Sweden as a mechanic engineer. Or actually, I mean, my job title is not mechanic engineer. That's rarely the job title, I think. So I work in battery production as a process engineer as of this month. And before that, I was at the same company doing material flow engineering. So yeah, I don't know, we might go deeper into what that means, but
Okay,
yeah.
Later will, yes, for sure.
Yes. Yeah, and so I studied mechanical engineering in Germany. I also went abroad during that time to France and then to Sweden, which is how I landed in Sweden, where I'm now. And I also started a YouTube channel when I started working. I just wanted to share my career start and do something more creative in my free time and kind of, yeah, help other engineering students, because oftentimes we don't really have a clear image of what we're going to do at work when we study and what we really should learn or why we should be motivated. So those were my goals in starting a YouTube channel, and I guess that's how you found me.
Yeah, exactly. No, thanks. You know, already from these first sentences, there are a list of questions that I would like to ask you because there are so many interesting topics to deep dive. The first is, for me, how did you decide to pick up exactly mechanical engineering? So there was any particular passion, interest, or it was, let's say, an optimized career path based on statistics? How did you choose it?
So I have to be honest, it wasn't a very deliberate choice. I think, so I was really into physics and math, but I was actually good at a lot of different subjects. It wasn't super clear for me what to go into, but I kind of had a preference for math and physics. And then I just looked at what can you do with that? What kind of subjects can you study? And I landed on engineering because I heard that it's something with inventing things, which sounded cool. And in Germany, mechanical engineering is the biggest type of engineering. It's what most people study. And so I thought, well, then it must be good. And because I really didn't have an understanding of what the different types of engineering mean, like really in detail, what is the difference between electrical engineering and mechanical, or even software engineering wasn't super clear to me.
Yeah. No, actually, this is a good point. As I mentioned, I'm an electrical engineer, but I pick up electrical engineering just because a friend of mine who was graduating in electronic engineers, he told me, Maurizio, don't go to electronics. There are too many students. Every room is so crowded. Exams, they are very difficult. So pick electrical because there are much less people. And then this was my starting point. So exactly, I had no really big understanding on what was the difference or so on. But something that really was interesting to me is that you studied mechanical engineering in Germany. That by definition is the country, the paradise for whatever is mechanic. But then now you are working in Sweden. How did you decide to leave Germany for this experience abroad? How did you find the job? If it was, again, something just happening or there was a plan behind it?
So there wasn't really a plan behind it. I went abroad for a year to Sweden during my master's studies, which were, so I was studying at the Technical University of Berlin and then going abroad for a year. And then afterwards, I decided to do an internship in Sweden just because I wanted to stay a little bit longer. And that was actually at the company where I work now. It was just a summer internship in factory controls, so kind of working with networks for the battery factory, because you need to connect all of the machines to a network there. And then they offered me a master thesis position, and yeah, then I kind of stuck there. But I guess also one thing that plays into that is that I was studying in Berlin, and I knew that I was probably not going to stay in Berlin just because it's not a very industrial area. It's great for computer science, but it's not really that great for mechanical engineering jobs. It's very limited. So, and I didn't really want to move to the south of Germany because I'm from the north, and it's I mean, it's very different. So yeah, I was kind of drawn to Sweden, which is, I guess, a little bit similar to the northern German culture.
Okay, but so they offered you this opportunity, and you pick it as, let's say, a first choice, or you went also through the journey of, let's say, application, went through the job fair, did you explore other opportunities, or since this was there and it was connected to your year abroad, you went straight there?
So I did go straight there, and at that point I didn't explore anything else. But of course, I mean, you should always stay up to date, I think, and kind of look at other options. So I have been applying at other places just to, you know, get the experience and to understand what other jobs are out there that I could develop into maybe in the future.
Okay. And you mentioned that you had this experience abroad during university in France and in Sweden. Did you have any chance to see what was the difference in the way they study? Because my perception is that, in particular, engineering has a completely different flavor country by country. So if I think in Italy, the first 2 years, okay, I studied engineering in 1990s, but still today, the first 2 years, you don't see an engineer. We do only mathematics, physics, chemicals, and so on, just pure sciences for the first 2 years. And at least where I was studying at Politecnico di Bari in the south of Italy, it was not, let's say, mathematics with engineers. It was mathematics with professors from mathematics department, physics, and so on. So it was really as crazy as it could be, pure scientist. What's your experience in Germany, and any comparison with France and Sweden?
So in Germany, and that's where, of course, went through all of the basics in the beginning, it's similar that you do a lot of math and physics basics, and you don't really get to understand what you need that for. So that was also my experience. And I don't really know what they do in the first years in France or Sweden because I haven't studied those there. I went later on. But I can say that there are very clear differences between all three countries. So Germany is quite hierarchical at the university. You don't really get a lot of time with your professors. You have, you know, they have assistants and tutors that will spend more time with you. And then the professor is more doing just the lectures. And it's different in France and in Sweden, where both the professors will basically do all of the courses. But still, France is also quite hierarchical, where you have to ask to go to the bathroom, for example. I remember that being very weird for me, because in Germany, they don't even care if you go to the lecture or not, and you can just get up and leave in the middle of it. It doesn't really matter. It's, you know, the spirit is kind of that they offer you to learn from them, but you don't have to do it. You have to pass the exams, and how you get there is kind of your thing. Whereas in France, it's a very controlled schedule, where you go to every single lecture and they will take attendance and they will ask you what you're doing if you're getting up to go to the bathroom.
Yeah, that sounds like high school. No, it's really
yeah. For me, it felt like that a little bit. Yeah, and then in Sweden, it's even different. So I experienced it being a lot smaller study groups, and the professors were kind of like your friend almost. They really wanted you to succeed. It wasn't like in Germany or France, where it's a bit more strict and where they're a little bit untouchable, I want to say.
Oh, okay. That's quite interesting.
So, yeah.
Now you're working in Sweden, and is it an international environment? How it's distributed? Colleagues, they came from everywhere. And if yes, do you see, at least at the beginning, any difference in way they approach the job or preparation, or any kind of difference considering the international environment?
Yes, so I work in a very international environment. We are about 50% Swedes, I want to say, and then the rest is internationals from all over the world. And that's especially because the battery industry where I work is a very young industry, and it's a very strong industry in certain countries like China and South Korea, and also the US. So we need to hire from all over to get the experts into our team. And so we work in a very, very international team. And there are definitely a lot of differences between everyone. What I notice how I go into meetings or into arguments is that I often come across as quite aggressive or direct, because yeah, I will not really try to cover up if I have negative feedback, whereas that's not very Swedish to do. The Swedish culture is it's more important to be nice and to kind of like, maybe you say a little bit your criticism, but you're definitely gonna say something nice before and after. And yeah, I'm not super used to that.
Yeah. On this topic, there is a very interesting book. I don't know if you know it. I think that the name is The Culture Map, where this person basically mapped different topics like negotiation, assertiveness, kind of communication, desire to fight or to avoid direct argues, and they put in a chart comparing country by country, no? So there are some really extreme situations where people, they are very assertive, and then you are working with someone coming from Japan where they have difficulties also in saying no, and then really you have to adapt. I've seen it often, and also in Switzerland, yes, there is this, they try, not always actually, but to avoid or to do a different, to find a different path to settle something. That's yeah, that's for sure interesting. One question: your daily job. Can you describe briefly how it's a standard working day, if there is such a thing in your case?
Yes. So since I just started my new job, it's not very standard. It's been 3 weeks at my new job. So I switched roles within the company, but now it's basically, I work in research and development for new battery production technologies, and I will have a few meetings every day. So first of all, I go on the bus and I drive to our lab factory where I work. Okay. So I'm there every day except for Friday, and yeah, I work in a small office with some other people, and then depending on what I need to do, so I either sit in the office or I go to our lab, which is basically a smaller battery factory, and the part where I work is in a clean and dry room, which means I have to gown up, I have to wear the whole white suit, a face mask, a hairnet, everything to protect the batteries from particles coming into them. So that's kind of like what it looks like when I work. And then I will, sit at my computer most of the day to either research new technologies, make plans for tests I want to take, or because every technology that we try out, we need to validate, and then we need to decide if we can use it in production or not.
Okay. Yeah. You just reminded me, because I work in a pharmaceutical industry, and then this concept of the clean room, for people who don't know it, these are rooms with very strict level. They are certified based on the level of contamination that needs to be avoided. And the last one, exactly, you have to change everything. You have to change all your clothes. You have to use specific equipment. In my case, I have to wear mask for the barber. So on. It's really, and the cleaning of this environment is very regulated, very strict. So it's one of the most expensive activities and more difficult also to manage, because you need very qualified people also to do the standard things like exactly cleaning and managing of spaces and so on. It's and for batteries exactly like for microelectronics, it's very, very strict as well. So that's interesting. Yeah. So because I remember your videos up to now, you were a field engineer, no? So you moved from field now to lab offices. That's and
Yes.
this is one of the big topics, also the point of the different path that an engineer career can take. I've seen that in your channel you are very interested also in all the, let's say, all the entrepreneurial things. You study, you expand a lot far beyond the pure engineering topics. So this point of moving to research and development, where there is also, I suppose, a lot of planning activities or so on, this decision was driven by the desire to acquire new skills. What was the reason for a shift? Also, after how long did you change the position?
After almost 3 years.
Okay,
Yes.
that's the usual magic number, no? 2 years. The first 6 months, you understand what's the job. The first year, you learn and you start performing, and then after 2 years, it's reasonable to start exploring other opportunities. So yes, 3 years, you confirm it, yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So there are a few reasons why I wanted to change. One was just that I felt like I really understood my role well, and I wanted to learn something new, and I really need the feeling that I'm learning something and that I'm learning quite aggressively as well. So I don't want to, learn super slowly. That's not really my style. And yeah, so I knew that I wanted to do something that's a new challenge. I also wanted to do something more technical than what I was doing. So before, I was working a lot with logistics equipment like conveyor belts or stacker cranes, like automated warehouses, equipment like that to transport the material within the factory and planning the flow of that. And I wanted to use a little bit more of my, you also need, of course, engineering skills. You need to basically plan this equipment. You need to test it once it's produced, and then make sure that it's installed in the correct way and that it's taken into production in the correct way. But now I get to use a bit more of my kind of chemistry knowledge and also mechanics knowledge, because I'm going more into actually developing the process with which we produce the batteries. And so that was also, I just wanted to use some of the skills that I wasn't using before. And research and development is also really an exciting field for me, because you get to do something completely new. I have a lot of freedom to explore a lot of different technologies and see how we can bring them in. And I get to work on a lot of different little investigations that we want to pursue to see how, in which direction we should take our process.
Yeah. This point is very interesting. Now you mentioned the desire to learn aggressively in your specific case, and this is also something that I constantly try to stress, explaining that I say during university you learn a lot, but you learn much more once you start working. I mean, for me, the rate is really 10-1, considering the different experience, the change of job, or so on. And this is also connect to my next question, because at least what I've seen often is that you start working and then you realize that I don't say that you don't need fully your degree, but really often you enter in the path of what's happening in your company, and often you use more the attitude and the mindset that you develop during university. So what has been your experience as a gap between, let's say, the university and start working? Also, if maybe in your case it was not such a big difference because you had already this experience in the plant, but have you seen this gap between the pure academic environment preparation versus what is really needed in the job? Also because you are working on batteries and you are a mechanical engineer. No, someone could say, if engineers are really silos areas, this should be an electronic engineer job. But the fact that you're there, it's exactly to show that it's really more how you apply what you learned or how you apply your mindset than the pure notion that you learned at university. What's your experience on this?
Yes, I completely agree. So I think what was the hardest by far for me during university was the math and the physics, doing calculations in control theory, or I also had a little bit of electrical engineering, which I always found very difficult because it was such abstract math.
Yeah.
And, yeah. So I was really sitting there. I don't know how I'm supposed to understand this. I have no idea. Like I was, at this point where I really had no idea how to learn something. And I've never, ever experienced this after university, because even though you do need to learn a lot of things, it's not necessarily things most of the time that you just cannot wrap your head around. It's usually something that you can actually understand as long as you put in the time. So the things that I had to learn initially were things like project management, what different milestones does a project go through, and how do I communicate well with other people in the team, other people that work in other departments that might not really understand my project very well because they might work in sales or in purchasing, things like that, or in document control. And then also how to write something down in a precise way. Writing technical specifications, which is basically a document that you write where you're explaining all the things that some equipment should meet. You write down like how big does it need to be, or is it allowed to be, how fast, and so on, just for your viewers to understand. And these documents are really, really, really important because this is what you agree on together with a partner. So if you're the customer, you might agree with the supplier that this is what they're going to build. And if you don't express yourself well in this document, then you're going to end up with problems, or you never want to end up where they say, oh, but you didn't say it, or we understood it completely different, and then you have something that you didn't want. So these were really the skills that I had to learn that I never even considered before, and that I wouldn't have thought would be the most difficult things to learn initially.
Yeah, no, I agree. And actually, I always mention that by coincidence, my first job was in the procurement department in the petroleum refinery of the Total Group, because it was the period when the energy market was in the process of liberalization. So it was 1999, so really ages ago. But the point is that I was there, and I had to deal a lot with the contracts, writing contracts, not just for the energy, but also for then engine maintenance, all these kind of services, materials, equipment, and so on. And then 2 years later, I moved to maintenance engineering department. And sometimes I was using the contract that I wrote when I was in procurement. And damn, then you learn the two sides of the equation. And actually, exactly as you mentioned, the skill to understand how to translate the commercial need in technical and technical words in the commercial world, it's absolutely fundamental, because at the end of the day, there is a contract, there is an agreement. All your needs to be transferred in a contract that for someone else is business. And then from the governance, the kind of KPI, the kind of parameters, how you check performances, what is the impact, what is relevant, what is not. This is really something that we oversee as engineer, but I found zero contents like these in university. So that was for me one of the potentially also one of the best opportunities, no? Because since I was very interested in learning these things, it helped me to create some competitive advantage also for the career. But checking what's the standard curriculum in university, I realized that all these things, I mean, you start working and then communication, preparing a meeting, executive summary, stakeholders management, that are the key element to be not just a tool, a nerdy tool in the company. They are missing. What's your experience? If you have to, let's say, to fill some gaps in the academic standard curriculum, what would you consider?
I think one big thing is how to make a business case. So this is basically, how do you defend an idea that you have or a project you want to do? Maybe you have an idea for using a different kind of conveyor belt to transport something. Then what the people that you need to convince are going to care about is not, you know, how it looks nice or how it's faster. Maybe they will care if it's faster, but you really have to put it into numbers of it's going to save them this much money, or it's going to save them potentially this much money, and this is how much we have to put into it to see how much it can save. So you really need to say, okay, the operational costs of this, it's going to cost this much per year to operate, it's going to cost this much to set it up front, and then this is how many years it's going to take to pay back all of that money that you spend up front. And these things I never heard about this. You hear like these words capex and opex, which is basically the capital expenditures and the operational expenditures. And this is the first time I heard it was at my job, and I was just like, okay, what does this mean? Did I miss something in university? But it's just, you really should have basically a lecture on the finances of engineering projects. And also the other thing is how projects work in terms of the different milestones, because I did learn a lot about the design phases of a project in engineering school. I think everyone usually designs something, but we never bring it further than the design. Maybe we build a prototype, but I've never had it that they also take us through what happens after that. So you manufacture it, you do some tests with it, you install it at the final site, and you do final testing, and then you figure out how to bring it into operation, how to ramp up the system. So these are all skills that are not really mentioned a lot, I think, in engineering school.
Yeah. No, you touched one key element that for me, people, they don't realize that also if we are engineers, also if we are technicians, we are part of a business. I don't remember who was mentioning it, the fact that, the question, what is Toyota business, let's say total business, American Express business? They all make money through cars, through financial services, through petroleum, or so on. But this point of understanding that whatever you do is part of a step of a business, and the business is increasing value. There is not the value chain, and then you have to increase the value, and then everything needs to be justified, because every idea has to fight in the investment committee, has to fight against other ideas. So you really need to explain pros, cons, what is the return on investment, if you can cope with OPEX or CAPEX, what is needed, what are the alternatives. You need to be smart, showing two alternatives that are too much something and too much something else. So your option looks like the middle wise decision, or so on. But these are exactly the soft skill, if we want, but are the fundamental one, because otherwise we are very specialized technicians, but we will always clash when we have to do business, when we have to connect with someone else, when we have to translate and so on. Davvero molto interessante. Per ora ci fermiamo qui. Nella seconda parte parleremo con Anna su qual è il modo migliore di approcciare l'università e come secondo lei bisogna fare dei salti per muoversi più verso il business. Ci vediamo alla seconda parte del video e ricordatevi di iscrivervi al canale e mettere commenti se ci sono delle domande che volete fare. Ciao!